Well, good morning and Happy New Year, and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for January 2nd, 2020. And here are our top stories. What is an investment consultant and what does he or she do? And we'll take a look at the hottest trends in retirement for 2020. Welcome back, everyone, and Happy New Year to you and your families. Thanks for joining us again this morning. We're going to start off with a discussion about a little-known position in the retirement industry, that of the investment consultant. And joining me now to discuss his role, what it means, and a lot more, Rod Baer, Senior Vice President with Callan Associates. Rod, thank you so much for joining us. Happy New Year. Great to have you on the program.
Thank you, Jeff, and to you as well.
Thank you so much. And it's great to have you on the program. And what I thought we'd do, Rod, many people who are watching this, I think people know you within the industry and know the work that you and your team at Callan do. But what I'd like to do in this first segment is talk about your role as a consultant, as an investment consultant, because people who are outside of our industry may not know the work that people like you do. So would you mind we'll get into what your firm does, but let's just start with who you are and what you do.
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. Well, I have a great job that I love quite a bit because I get to work with plan sponsors. So the companies that sponsor a retirement plan for their employees, they used to have defined benefit or pension plans, and then the role of the defined contribution plan, the 401k, that came into existence. So I work on retirement plans, the traditional pension, and increasingly the defined contribution plans.
Right. And so you go ahead. I'm sorry.
So the defined contribution plan is an increasingly important cornerstone of the retirement funding exercise that an individual has to work on their whole life. And it's important because it's highly regulated. It's important for society that individuals save appropriately. And so with that, it's a little difficult. So I advise the companies, the plan sponsor of the 401k plan, on what is the best funds to have on the menu, what's the most reasonable for their participant base, what is easy to use. We are learning all the time in this industry. So what is best practice? I go from client to client and talk about what we are seeing that works in the industry. And then we interpret regulations and help them comply with those. And we benchmark fees and do a number of things that, they don't have the time to do. They're busy with their regular business, their day job. And so we enjoy working on those items, assisting the company, the plan sponsor, really all working together for the ultimate benefit of the participant.
Yeah, and so people, you may define yourself as an investment consultant, but other people may know the role as a registered investment advisor or a financial advisor. I mean, the title varies from organization to organization, but the bottom line is you are there to advise the employer on a multitude of issues. And many people who are watching this may not even know that this exists, but you and your firm oftentimes will serve as a fiduciary, and that's a word that we have defined on this program before.
Yes, that is true. So there is a lot that goes into every aspect of setting up a plan and monitoring it day to day. Things change. Sometimes funds change or have issues. So we do a lot of homework behind the scenes to brief the plan sponsor, our partner, our co-fiduciary, if you will, on what we see as the best recommendations for the situation at that time.
Yeah.
And so it is a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. We have the end participant in mind all the time. And not only do we do that because we enjoy the work and these are our colleagues and our friends and we want to have a program that works well for them, but there is a legal obligation. That fiduciary standard of care is a very high bar, as I'm sure you've discussed before. And so we work diligently to maintain that level of care for the plan, for the investments, for the fees, and again, for that ultimate participant who's out there doing their job. They're focused on what they do best. We want to focus on what we do so that the retirement is as comfortable as we can make it, and as the participant can make it for their part.
Thanks, Rod. And you work for a firm called Callan Associates. I think the firm is about 45 years old, if I'm not mistaken. It's got a long legacy. But can you just describe the type of firm Callan is? Because people would know that firm. It's a financial advisory firm or registered. The type of work that you do, that they do, that you and your colleagues do, I think that's important, from the research to the due diligence as well.
Yeah, good question. So what we do, we have about 200 employees. We are in the United States, of course. We focus on the U.S. We don't have international operations, but we do have some international clients. We work a lot with very large plans. So with state level government plans, large corporations, Fortune 50 type companies, all the way down to smaller plans that have unique needs and have selected us to help them address, again, unique issues. So those are the types of clients that we work with for the retirement front. We also work with endowments and foundations, and even interesting little capital pools that help pay for nuclear power plants to be dismantled and safely put to rest, in a few decades from now. So in doing that work and serving those clients, we have a fair number of investment specialists that look at asset class specialties. They use analytic tools to put together optimal portfolios that are really trying to extract the best return for risk taken. Beyond that structure work, we have a number of specialists that just review investment managers. Those are the folks, the Fidelities, the T. Rowe's, the Goldman Sachs of the world, who have funds that are actually doing the buying and selling of securities. So we analyze those managers and their products, and we make recommendations on which ones would be good fits for the structure and the situation at the moment. And then we have other folks that produce research and do publishing and try to make easy to digest short pieces with colorful graphics out of what is sometimes dense quantitative research. Yeah. So that's what we do. I am a field consultant. I'm one of 40 or so that fan out and service our 400 customers in the U.S. And in total, the assets that we advise on are around $2.5 trillion.
Wow. I mean, that's obviously significant. And just to kind of carry it through a little bit further, I mean, you're out there, you're the tip of the spear, to use an analogy, and you're pulling you manage the client, and you're pulling on all the resources of your firm. And by the way, Callan, there are a number of firms. I mean, Callan's a great firm, but there are a number of firms that are in this business, and I think a lot of people are not really aware of this little niche business that exists, but you serve a very important role because you're out there in the field, drawing from the resources of the organization. And oftentimes, Rod, you meet with clients on at least a quarterly basis, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, that's right. Typically a quarterly basis to, when we've done the work and things are at a steady state, we're still monitoring performance. We're monitoring the investments from, of course, a quantitative perspective, mm-hmm. but also a qualitative perspective, looking for changes in the firm and the investment team. We're looking at the economy, macroeconomic issues. We put all that together in a report and deliver that to, again, our what is normally our fiduciary partner, the committee that is at the company or the retirement plan that is sort of ultimately in charge of the plan, and they've hired us or another consulting firm as an advisor to them. Right. So we deliver that update quarterly, And then when there are issues that arise, then we're there as needed to do whatever's needed.
Yeah, a really important role. And those committee members, just for the audience, they can be human resource officers, people officers, chief executive officers, treasurers, state treasurers. I mean, Rod, it varies just depending upon each organization, right?
Oh, absolutely. But you're right. There's a multi-function representation at the table. The HR execs and senior leaders are there, and they're talking about the things that they see. They bring a wonderful perspective. Then you have the finance side, and they bring an investment perspective,
right,
in terms of, again, the theory and the quantitative pieces of how this is supposed to be put together. And so together at the table, we talk through the issues at hand. You're right, there are also business leaders. There are key representatives from different departments. It may be the physicians group or the group of, the truckers union at the retailer. A diverse group for our public plans. It can be various groups from various agencies in the state, for example. Some will be career members on the board, and others will be appointed by the governor and represent various initiatives for the state.
Yeah, a lot of important people who have important roles within the organization, and probably a lot of education that has to happen during those meetings. Rod, I want to take a very brief break. We come back, we're going to talk to Rod about some of the trends that he and his firm see in the retirement space. Since it's a new year, might as well get off the year right with looking at some of those trends. So stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. Welcome back. We're talking to Callan Associates Senior Vice President Rod Baird, investment consultant. Rod, thanks so much for sticking around with us this morning.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoy talking about this topic.
Yeah, I can tell. I know there's a lot of passion that you and your colleagues and many of us in the industry have across the country on helping people save and plan for their financial future. So it's a new year, and what I thought we would do, Callan does a lot of research, authoring a lot of papers, and I wanted to get your and the firm's insight. It's 2020, what your perspectives are on the latest trends and issues related to retirement.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So you're right, 2020, it's sort of a new decade, if you will. And so when I think back on the past decade, we've made some progress. We've seen some success here in terms of the past decade. So when I'm talking about these plans, I'm mostly thinking of the defined contribution 401k plan that you might see at your corporation, or if you're a public employee, it might be called a 457 plan. But for these plans, for the 401k space in particular, we've seen auto enrollment be successful. So we've tried, the industry has tried to think about human behavior and what does it take to nudge folks to make the right decisions, or set the situation up so that they sort of fall into the right decision, if you will. And so we've used, instead of opt-in, we've used opt-out techniques. And so folks will be, new employees will be defaulted into the plan automatically if they forget, for example, to sign up when they're filling out their initial new employee HR paperwork. So getting them into the plan has been tremendous, and now participation rates have materially improved in a lot of aspects. The second bright spot is defaulting those folks that we put into the plan, defaulting them into a portfolio that's pre-made. It is made up of different asset classes, not just equity, but equity, bonds, domestic, international, and other asset classes. Diversification is very important in investing. And so these professionally designed and maintained portfolios, often called target date funds or balanced funds or target risk funds, have been helpful. And so we see trends where the younger employees are saving quite a bit more than they used to historically, and they're in better diversified portfolios. So these sorts of choice architectures and defaulting folks and increasing their contributions for them, a percentage point a year, for example, has really helped improve the retirement readiness for a lot of participants.
Rod, let me ask you a question, because in our last, or a couple of questions, in our last segment, we talked about the research and how important that is, the quantitative aspects. But in listening to your trends and the things that were positives, it sounds like a lot of it is around more qualitative and what I would call feel good types of things, and communication. Is that your experience as well? Meaning how people perceive and understand the plan, how they're communicated to, that really drives a lot of the usage, in addition to those other quantitative things like investment returns, performance, what the economy is doing.
Absolutely. So in this defined contribution space, the number one problem for many, many years has been just getting folks to get into the plan and start saving. Saving enough, that's been the number one problem. And so these items that I've discussed, those have made actually very good strides in terms of fixing that problem. We've had good investments around for quite a while. There have been good funds, good solutions. Investment theory has been researched and refined, and that's been known, for 50 years. It's getting the individual to save. That's been the issue.
And Rod, so I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, what are things that we could improve upon? It's a new year, right? So we're all making New Year's resolutions. I'm going to go to the gym more, work out, do more, maybe try to grow some hair. What are some of the things that you think we can improve upon in 2020 and beyond?
So what we're seeing there is we're seeing an ongoing focus, or I would even say a growing focus from the plan sponsors that put these plans together. So we know the end participant, a lot of folks, they just don't quite open their mail or get online or study finance to the level of a portfolio manager, even though we're asking them, in many cases to be a portfolio manager. So they're not doing that homework. So we're trying to work on the plan and educate those folks and structure it so that it's really there to help the participant. So for them, for the new year, what we're working on is, let's make sure the plan doesn't cost too much. Let's continually look at the items that are in it, the investment funds, the record-keeping service, everything that's around the plan. Let's make sure the fees are as low as they can be. This is this is an industry that is maturing a little bit. Fees are coming down, and so the marketplace is changing. So we have to stay on top of that. And again, the committees that oversee these in the past, if you have seen some headlines around litigation with 401ks, sometimes folks in their day job, haven't quite, delved into the complexity of these plans, perhaps to the level that they should have. So it's been a good wake-up call to stay very mindful about fees. So we've been tackling projects to benchmark fees. So I would say for the new year, continue that effort. We then talk about, now that you've looked at fees, let's take it a step further and really think about what's the bang for the buck that you are getting for that fee. And so you've seen a lot of headlines around the use of index funds and active versus passive. And it doesn't make sense to, in many cases, to go all active in every asset class. Doesn't make sense to go all passive in every asset class for a lot of technical and operational reasons that are outside the scope of this argument or this discussion. But I would say we spend a lot of time talking to our plan sponsor clients about what is the best bang for the buck that we can put on the menu for, again, the ultimate benefit of the participants.
And we've got about a minute left, Rod. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the Secure Act, which was attached to the appropriations bill, signed into law. This is a big step, big monumental step. What are your thoughts? What's the firm's thoughts about the passage of that act?
It's a very significant piece of legislation that is going to do for us and for plans and for participants over the next decade, probably as much as what a key piece of legislation did 10 years ago for us the past 10 years. And so I talked about, we made a lot of progress in terms of getting folks into the plan and getting them saving. Now the Secure Act has additional provisions that will help folks save even more, let these auto escalation features save more. But it also talks about after the career is done, the post-retirement period. So my clients are starting to think about, how can I keep my employees in after they've retired? Mm-hmm. And so there's more deliberation around what are the solutions that should be on the menu? How should we communicate that? And so after the working career is done, understanding that situation, what you've saved, what that equates to in terms of income, those types of disclosures are facilitated by the Secure Act, and that's going to give these plan sponsors the confidence to continue to innovate and improve these plans for participants who are done accumulating, they're done working, they're ready to retire, they're ready to convert their nest egg into an income stream. And this will allow plan participants and us as advisors to work with them to find the best ways to do that.
Yeah, I think I'm really bullish, and it's exciting, and I echo all of your sentiments. Rod, thank you so much for joining us on the program, telling us a little bit about what you and the firm do. I think that's really important for the audience. Wishing you and everyone at Callan and your family a great new year, and we will certainly look to have you back on the show soon.
Thank you, Jeff. Happy holidays to you and to your viewer base. Thank you.
And that wraps up our first episode of BRN AM for 2020. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it educational as well. Hey, have a financial topic or someone of interest that you think we should interview? Drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the news in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, check out today's edition of the Morning Pulse. And folks, we're on a roll, so keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.